Have you ever heard of a hero who was once a slave, a man who shook the foundations of the mighty Roman Republic? Today we're diving deep into the incredible true story of Spartacus, the gladiator who led one of the most famous slave rebellions in all of history. This isn't just a tale from a movie or a TV show. This was real, and it was epic. So, who was Spartacus? The truth is, we don't know a ton about his early life. Ancient historians like Plutarch and Appian tell us he was a Thracian, from a region that's now part of modern-day Bulgaria, Greece, and Turkey. Some sources say he might have even served as a soldier in the Roman army's auxiliary forces before being captured and sold into slavery. Imagine that, fighting for the very empire that would later enslave you. Whatever his past, his life took a dramatic turn when he was sent to a gladiator school, or ludus, in Capua, a city not far from Naples. This school was owned by a man named Lentulus Spartacus. Now, life as a gladiator wasn't the glorious, action-packed adventure we see in movies. It was brutal. Gladiators were property, forced to fight, often to the death for the entertainment of Roman crowds. They were trained killers, but they were also prisoners. Their lives were cheap, and their futures were bleak. Spartacus, however, was different. He possessed not just incredible strength and skill with a sword, but also a sharp mind and a charismatic presence. He wasn't content to die for someone else's amusement. He saw the injustice, the cruelty, and he started to dream of something more: freedom. In 73 BC, that dream ignited into a full-blown rebellion. Spartacus, along with about 70 other gladiators, decided they had enough. Their plan was simple but daring. They armed themselves with whatever they could find in the kitchen: knives, cleavers, even spits for roasting meat, and fought their way out of the school. It was a chaotic, bloody escape. They overwhelmed their guards and burst out into the streets of Capua. Once free, they found a wagon full of actual gladiatorial weapons and armor, which was a huge stroke of luck. Now properly equipped, they weren't just a mob of escaped slaves. They were a trained fighting force. They fled the city and took refuge on the slopes of the nearby volcano, Mount Vesuvius. Yes, the very same Vesuvius that would later bury Pompeii. Word of their escape spread like wildfire. Slaves from all over the surrounding countryside, hearing of a chance at freedom, began to flock to Spartacus's banner. His small band of 70 gladiators quickly swelled into an army of thousands. These weren't just warriors. They were farmhands, shepherds, and household slaves, men and women united by a single powerful desire: to break their chains. Naturally, Rome couldn't just let this happen. A slave revolt was a direct threat to their entire way of life, which was built on the backs of enslaved people. They saw it as a minor problem at first, just a bit of local trouble. They sent a praetor named Gaius Claudius Glaber with a militia of about 3,000 soldiers to deal with them. Glaber was overconfident. He trapped Spartacus and his followers on Vesuvius, blocking the only known path down the mountain. He figured he'd just wait them out. They'd either starve or surrender. But Glaber severely underestimated Spartacus's ingenuity. What Spartacus did next was brilliant. He had his men gather wild vines that grew on the slopes of the volcano and weave them into long, sturdy ladders. Under the cover of darkness, they used these vine ladders to rappel down a steep, unguarded cliff face on the other side of the mountain. They then circled around and launched a surprise attack on the Roman camp. Glaber's soldiers were caught completely off guard, asleep and unprepared. The rebels annihilated the Roman force, capturing their weapons and supplies. This victory was a massive turning point. It wasn't just an escape anymore, it was a declaration of war. The news of this incredible feat boosted Spartacus's reputation, and his army grew even larger, eventually reaching tens of thousands. They were no longer just a band of rebels. They were a formidable army on the move. For the next 2 years, from 73 to 71 BC, Spartacus and his army marched up and down the Italian peninsula, seemingly unstoppable. They defeated 2 more Roman legions sent against them. Spartacus proved to be a masterful military tactician, outmaneuvering experienced Roman commanders time and time again. His army, though a mix of different people with varying levels of training, was disciplined and effective under his leadership. They raided estates, freed more slaves, and gathered more resources, becoming a rolling force of liberation. Now, what was Spartacus's ultimate goal? Historians still debate this. Some think he wanted to march on Rome itself and bring the Republic to its knees. Others believe his plan was more practical, to lead his people north over the Alps and out of Italy, so they could all return to their original homelands as free people. This second theory seems more likely. At one point, his army did reach the north of Italy, near the Alps. They had a clear path to freedom. But then, for reasons we can only guess at, they turned back south. Why? Maybe some of his followers, emboldened by their victories, wanted to stay and plunder more of Italy's riches. Maybe there was a disagreement among the leadership. Crixus, one of his key lieutenants, had split off with a large contingent of his own and was eventually defeated. Whatever the reason, this decision to turn back would prove to be fatal. By now, Rome was in a full-blown panic. This was no longer a minor uprising. It was the Third Servile War, the most serious slave rebellion the Republic had ever faced. They needed someone who could finally crush this threat. They turned to one of their richest and most ruthless citizens, Marcus Licinius Crassus. Crassus was given command of 8 legions, a massive army of over 40,000 professional soldiers. He was a determined and cruel commander. To restore discipline to the demoralized Roman troops, he even used a practice called decimation, where 1 in every 10 soldiers of a unit that had shown cowardice was executed by their own comrades. It was brutal, but it sent a clear message. Failure was not an option. Crassus pursued Spartacus's army relentlessly, cornering them in the toe of Italy, the region of Calabria. He built a massive wall and trench, stretching 37 miles from coast to coast, trapping the rebel army. His plan was to starve them into submission, just as Gladiator had tried to do on Vesuvius. For a while it seemed to work. Winter set in, and the rebels were running out of food. But once again, Spartacus showed his incredible resourcefulness. On a stormy, snowy night, he had his men fill in a section of the trench with earth and tree branches, creating a bridge. Under the cover of the storm, a significant portion of his army managed to break through Crassus's lines and escape the trap. Despite this daring escape, the tide was turning. Spartacus's army was weakened, and another powerful Roman general, Pompey the Great, was returning from a campaign in Spain with his veteran legions. Spartacus knew he was caught between 2 powerful Roman armies. His time was running out. He made a final, desperate stand in 71 BC. The final battle, believed to have been fought in Lucania, was ferocious. Plutarch tells a story that before the battle, Spartacus had his horse brought to him. He drew his sword and killed it, declaring that if he won, he would have many better horses, but if he lost, he would not need one. He was going to fight on foot, alongside his men, to the very end. Spartacus fought with incredible courage, cutting his way through soldiers and trying to reach Crassus himself. But he was eventually surrounded and overwhelmed. He was cut down, fighting until his very last breath. His body was never identified among the piles of the fallen. The rebellion was crushed. Crassus was merciless in his victory. He crucified 6,000 captured slaves along the Appian Way, the main road leading to Rome. The crucifixion stretched for over 100 miles, a gruesome and horrifying warning to anyone else who might dare to dream of rebellion. So was it all for nothing? Not at all. Even though Spartacus lost, his story echoed through the ages. He became a symbol of the oppressed fighting for freedom against impossible odds. He wasn't just a gladiator. He was a leader, a brilliant strategist, and an inspiration. He showed that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit's desire for freedom can never be completely extinguished. The story of Spartacus is a powerful reminder of the brutal reality of the Roman world, but also a testament to the courage of those who dared to defy it. He may have been defeated, but his legend became immortal. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey back in time, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next historical deep dive. See you next time!